Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of the KeenGamer podcast. My name is Kyle, and once again, I have a fantastic panel of new voices for you guys this week. First, let me introduce Callum to the group. Callum, how are you doing today?
I'm alright. It's about 1 billion degrees in my country, so I'm melting right now.
Oh man, it's snowing where I am right now, so I'm in the exact opposite of what you're going through.
Well, slap me on a sandwich because I must be jelly.
Oh my goodness, I'll be the peanut butter. Also, this week we have Noah joining us for the first time. Noah, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Kyle?
I'm doing good. Thanks for joining us this week. Um, I'm so glad to have you guys on. The topic for this week's episode will be celebrating Skyrim's 10th anniversary. And we're talking to some of the writers at KeenGamer. You two seemed very passionate about the game and that you have been with it for quite some time. So at the end of the show, we'll talk about everything Skyrim. But first, let's talk about games that we're playing right now. I don't have that much to offer this week. I've been busy with work and I've been busy catching up on games like Guardians of the Galaxy. I've been replaying Persona 5, which, if you listen to last week's episode, you know how much of an ordeal that is for me right now. The only new game I'm really playing is WarioWare Get It Together, the newest WarioWare game for the Switch. For anyone unfamiliar with the franchise, WarioWare is essentially Mario Party minus the board game aspect, and each mini game takes about 5 seconds to clear. So I think the one for the Switch is probably the sixth or seventh in the series. And each WarioWare has typically been pretty unique. The one for the Wii used motion controls. The one for the DS used touch controls. The one for the Wii U used the gamepad. So each one is usually associated with the system it's on. WarioWare Get It Together is a bit different in that you play each minigame as a different character that has a different ability. And to kind of break that down, the one minigame, so say you have a minigame where you have to pick 3 apples off of a tree. You can play as Wario, who has the ability to float and tackle. There's a character named 9 Volt who will ride back and forth on the screen on a skateboard. And if you hit A, he'll shoot a yo-yo directly up in the air. And there's about 18 different playable characters throughout WarioWare. So one singular minigame can be accomplished about 18 different ways, which is neat. The only downside to that is I don't think every character is as good as the other ones in the game. I'm finding certain minigames to be incredibly easy with characters like Wario or Mona, who's able to throw a boomerang in any direction you like. Certain minigames are nearly impossible. For example, I did one last night that was don't move, and I played as a character who is continuously jumping up and down. There's literally nothing I can do to not move playing as this character. So it seems a little bit unbalanced in that aspect. But overall, I'm enjoying the mini games themselves. They're always hilarious. They always have funny music playing. Um, for the first time in WarioWare, there's a co-op campaign, which is very nice. So I played through the entire campaign with my partner, where you each choose a different character. Sometimes you're choosing up to 3 to 5 that will randomly shuffle throughout the mini games. That only took us probably like 3 to 4 hours to beat. It's very short, but yeah, WarioWare is very fun. I was on here last week talking about Mario Party. I think I probably like Mario Party Superstars a bit more than the newest WarioWare game, but overall, it's fun. It's exactly what I expected. I don't think it's going to be my favorite in the series, but I'm going to put some more time into it and then kind of see if my thoughts change over time. There's also a really fun weekly challenge mode where they will assign you 2 characters, and there's a set list of mini games they want you to complete, and there's global leaderboards for that as well. So you can take part in the weekly challenge. You can see how far you can get. You can post your ranking. If you're like me, you can find out that you're in the top 10,000 people in the world. You're not even like top 5, top 3. Like I'm like bottom of the barrel when it comes to WarioWare players. But I'm gonna, like I said, I'll keep playing some more, see how it goes. It's like a little Nintendo game, nothing crazy. It's just kind of a fun itch to play, and it'll be a good party game to play when I've guests over for like the holidays and such. But I don't have much else to say about WarioWare. It's just another one of those. Um, Callum, you've been playing Dark Souls Remastered, and I assume this isn't for the first time you're playing it.
No, no. Recently, my sister moved out of our house, and she took our PlayStation 3 with her because it plays DVDs. And it unfortunately, that was the only copy of Dark Souls I had. Now, I've owned every Dark Souls game, every Soulsborne game, and I've never finished them because I don't have infinite time or patience. and I decided to really try and finish this one. I haven't yet. It's not going well. But if you don't know what Dark Souls is, it is it's a role playing game from Software, and it's set in this world of fire and darkness, and how there's these two opposing forces, and the force of fire won out, but now its power is dwindling, so the world is kind of slowly dying around you, and you are the chosen undead, which means that you're the only person on earth who is not too insane to go and do something about this. So you go and do something about this in various places, and I don't want to spoil too much for you, because if you haven't played it, it's really honestly too good to be surprised. Like, you can't go into this with any previous knowledge, but the second you start the game, you are definitely allowed to look everything up. It's the only game where looking up guides is absolutely acceptable. They don't tell you anything in this game at all. Like, I had to go to a different area after I rang a bell after fighting some gargoyles, and to get there, you have to take an elevator down from the starting area, run to the direct right of you, open a door, run across two planks of wood, which is supposed to be a bridge, run past three ogres, and climb down basically a scaffolding of just terrible wood into a poisonous swamp, and you succeeded. That's what you wanted to happen, so that you can find a spider lady to ring a second bell that's underground. For some reason. It's a really brilliant experience, and the remastered version brings it to PC so that you can enjoy it there. It looks gorgeous, it sounds gorgeous, and it's tough to think of problems with it other than the massive barrier of entry. This is a tough game.
Were you inspired by the recent Elden Ring gameplay to boot up Dark Souls, or was this kind of something you were planning for a while?
No, I've been planning to finish Dark Souls 1 for a while. Elden Ring looks fun, but I am worried that it's going to fall into the same boxes as basically every open world game, which is basically every game now. And yeah, it's unfortunately it's also something I'm never going to own because I can't buy a PS5.
I keep forgetting that it's a PS5 exclusive. It's not coming to Microsoft at all, or
Not
PC.
as far as I know.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
They might do it in the future, but unfortunately, From Software seems to have a very good exclusive deal with PlayStation.
I mean, after all the support they gave Bloodborne after it was released, I can see why that relationship would be so strong.
Yeah, which the Bloodborne community deeply hates, by the way.
Yo, I know. I've seen the complaints. I also that Bloodborne like PS1 demake is coming out very soon. I'm not sure if you guys saw. There's a fan creating like a PS1 style version of Bloodborne that looks very
Why?
cool.
Why would you do that? The PS1 was the worst.
Yeah, no. I think PS1 games hold up the least out of any video game console of all time. I'd rather go back. No,
Yeah.
maybe not Atari, but PS1 games are not pretty. But you feel like you've been making progress in Dark Souls. Are you farther than you've ever been before, or are you still kind of
No.
catching up to your? Okay.
No, I'm catching up to my previous save, which I only got that far because a friend was helping me, literally sitting next to me and telling me where to go. But I'm getting close now. I do just want to say, with the Bloodborne thing, I have a funny story. So my house got broken into in 2016 on Valentine's Day, and they stole my PlayStation 4,
Oh
which
no.
had a copy of my Game of the Year Bloodborne edition in it, and I've never been able to find it again. So please, From Software, can you bring this game to computer so I can play it again?
Yeah, well, you'd think with Sony porting so many other games, like their exclusive games like Death Stranding, God of War,
Hmm.
Horizon, maybe Bloodborne is down that tube somewhere. But I mean, they have other games, I guess, like Last of Us and even like Uncharted's coming out soon for it. I guess they have other priorities, but that PC Bloodborne port needs to happen soon. Noah, have you played? Are you a big Dark Souls guy or not really?
So, Dark Souls, I haven't played. When I was in college, I was in my school's video game club for a little while, and at the time, my girlfriend at the time played that sometimes, and it was definitely cool to watch. Looked like it'd be fun to play. It did seem hard, and I don't like being challenged quite that much. But it seemed like a really cool concept, and I think Fallen Order kind of takes after it a little bit, especially in how like you kind of have those save points and you can like respawn the enemies kind of. But like there's a cost for like if you want your health back, you need to respawn the enemies, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the influence that Dark Souls has had on so many games since its release cannot be like understated. Like Noah was just saying with Star Wars Fallen Order, like there's like essentially bonfires in that game that you go to save and respawn enemies essentially. You even think about games like Death's Door that came out. They're just more like a top-down, not platforming, but action game, but it still inherits so many of the Dark Souls DNA, and it's like game code, which is very interesting. So yeah, Callum, are you planning on doing the entire trilogy, or are you kind of just hoping to do number one and move on to something else?
I mean, I'm not gonna start making promises I can't fulfill. I haven't even gotten far enough in number one that I can justifiably start thinking about the next one. But if I do play more, I'm gonna skip two because I played quite a bit of two. It's the worst one. It's not fun. And one feels like the best one, except for Bloodborne, which is the best Soulsborne game.
Yeah, I was saying last week that Sekiro, like the only game, Sekiro was my first FromSoft. I have not played Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, or Bloodborne. I played Demon Souls and I played Sekiro. So I really need to go back and fill in those gaps. Probably before Elden Ring, because I definitely want to. People are saying Elden Ring looks like Dark Souls 4, so I wouldn't mind getting some of that Dark Souls experience in me before hopping in there, because it does look like a different experience than Sekiro or even Demon Souls.
Well, the
Um,
interesting thing about it is that it's kind of a combination of Sekiro and Dark Souls 3 in that it's got a lot of the elements from the Dark Souls series, like focus points and all of that, but it's got the verticality of Sekiro with the improved jumping and horseplay and things. So I
mhm.
think it's going to be a game that's a lot more action focused.
Yeah, and that really excites me. And the idea of it being more of an open world where almost like Breath of the Wild when it came out, everybody had their own unique experiences about what they were doing and what they were discovering in that game. And I hope the first week of Elden Ring is just people on Twitter being like, "Oh my god, I found this hidden boss," or "Oh my god, I found this item that lets you do this one thing." Like the sense of exploration and discovery is probably what I'm looking forward to most in Elden Ring over bosses or George R. R. Martin lore or whatever else they're gonna have packed in there. Um, yeah. Any other final thoughts on Dark Souls?
If you can not play it, I'd suggest that because it's going to eat up most of your time and money, and you're not going to have a very fun time. But if you are playing it, don't end on a low note. Try and end on a high note because it's just going to make it harder to go back.
And I think what you were saying as well. I think if you do play Dark Souls, there is no shame in using a guide in these kind of games. Like back when these games dropped, the internet had to work together to try and figure out some of its flavor text clues and mysteries, like what you're describing about going down into the sewer, going across the two planks. Like that was not there's not an arrow on your HUD pointing you to go that way. Like you and the internet had to solve that itself. Um, so yeah, no, I'm gonna play him soon, probably with a guide.
Actually, just real quick, one of the brave new additions that's been added to Elden Ring is a map.
Hmm, I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
there's a map now. That's the
So
bold new feature that's carrying this series forward is map reading.
we're celebrating Elden Ring for maps, horseback riding,
Yes.
and jumping. They did it from software. They cracked the code. You were alluding to it earlier, Noah, but you've been playing Star Wars Fallen Order this week, a game that I still think about pretty often since I last beat it. I guess a couple of years ago now. Is this your first time playing through it?
No, and that's really one of the things that's impressed me about it is the longevity. Like after first playing it, like I was thinking, a lot went into this setting and into these worlds, and that's all great. But it took maybe a week to play through it. So I was thinking, well, like it's an awful lot of work here for a game that takes a week to play. But you know what? I'm still playing it. I don't really do new playthroughs. The only time I ever restarted the game was to get the red lightsaber crystal. Because if there are times I want to imagine that I'm part of the Sith, so yeah, so you need that. And so essentially, how I play it now is I kind of just do the planets in order and try to clear the planets, almost like a Jedi running a training course. And it's fun. It's still fun now. I like to take it out if I'm just bored, need to do something. And I do get kind of tired of the animations, but I mean it has been a really long time. So, there's going to be a sequel. Hopefully there'll be some cooler animations in that one.
Are you replaying it on the upgraded version that came out this year, or are you just playing the base game?
The base game. Yeah, I prefer not to upgrade it in the event, unless I really have to,
Hmm.
like for Skyrim. I've spent probably $200 playing Skyrim, and I'm about to
Yeah.
spend more.
Because like I was saying, I really liked Fallen Order. Loved maybe an exaggeration because I don't think I loved every part of it, but I really liked it. So when they re-released like the PS5 patch for that game, that was really tempting for me to reinstall and hop back in there and see what it looks like at like 60 FPS, and ray tracing I think was involved there too. But it's cool to hear that even like the base version of that game, which I think was impressive when it came out, still holds up today despite current gen technology.
Yeah, I think so too.
Are you re-enjoying the story? Is the story as good as you remember the first time? Because I remember liking the main character, whose name is I'm forgetting right now.
Cal
It's my
Kestis.
name.
Oh, of course. I feel like an
Yeah.
idiot now.
You're talking to him.
I know, Cal. I always liked him, his little robot buddy. It's like the supporting cast as well. I remember being really good. So is that still hitting as well the second time?
Yeah, I like re-examining the story the second time. Like, knowing what's going to happen, it can be easier to kind of judge sometimes. That wasn't my favorite Star Wars story. It felt a little bit bland to some other content that I like, and that's I think a bit too typical of how Disney has handled Star Wars so far, as these bland characters that are really just, and they're clones of the original trilogy characters, essentially. So I do hope to see more branching out. We've got the Book of Boba Fett coming up, which it's a retcon show, but you know what? I'm gonna watch it. So I just hope there's more originality coming.
Yeah, I think post Skywalker saga, like post episode 9, I feel like Star Wars has really kind of found a new footing in terms of what it's offering between The Mandalorian, which I just binge watched during pandemic. I watched all 2 seasons. I couldn't stop watching it. It's just really, really good atmospheric Star Wars storytelling. Fallen Order, I agree with you, Noah, that it falls into some of those kind of cliches that Star Wars is known for these days, but it also subverts some of those expectations as well and starts to trail a path for itself to succeed. But with that, like you were saying, I'm a little on the fence about expectation wise, but at this point, I'm gonna watch or play almost anything with Star Wars on it because I feel like they've done a good job of rebuilding my faith in their IP over the past couple years, especially since Rise of Skywalker.
All right, you have any thoughts, Callum?
Yeah, I want to say I definitely want to see more things in the Star Wars universe that aren't just about like Jedi's. It would be nice to see more like the every man kind of situation, and that would be cool. But I wanted to ask you, what console did you play Fallen Order on?
Right now, I'm on the Xbox One. I'm in the
Oh,
hunt for a Series X. Don't have one yet, so I may be sleeping at a Best Buy tonight. We will see.
I remember I played it on Steam, which was a whole process because you have to go through Origin and things. But I remember it was a surprisingly poorly optimized game for computers. Because I was hitting the minimum requirements at least, but it would chug at the worst possible moments. And I was just wondering, did it have that problem on consoles as well?
It's not. I wouldn't say it's as bad as it was. There are times, and since I've kind of played the planets over and over again, I know where they are. Like just on my mind right now, early on in Kashyyyk, when you're climbing the first like fence climb that to get the overlook of the Imperial refinery, it always lags a bit there. But I wouldn't say it's to the point where it really interferes with your enjoyment of the game. Just sometimes it'll lag, sometimes the graphics will be underdeveloped at first, but it goes away real quickly.
Okay, and final question from the floor. What playstyle did you go for? Were you more lightsaber guy, or do you prefer like force powers?
It varies. I guess I prefer having the double-bladed lightsaber out. That using that came a bit more naturally to me. Actually, I changed my default controls to make right trigger the attack button because I was just struggling to use. I guess it was either X or B at the time to use the lightsaber, and I was just struggling with that because I'm so used to right trigger being your attack button. But once I made that change, it started coming a lot more naturally to me. But I do kind of try to go through them differently, and when I screw up, like when an enemy like hits me, which is unusual, I've gotten pretty good. It's usually because I'm trying to kill something differently than I normally would. And, and that leads to mistakes sometimes, but you know what? You've got 10 of those what are they called? Those health regen things, and it works out.
Kind of going back to Callum's question about like the technical aspects of the game on console, it came back to me as soon as you asked. Like one of my biggest gripes with the game was its load times. There are quite a few games from last generation, and I'm going to shout out Control as well, that if you accidentally stepped off the edge of a cliff, like if you platformed incorrectly, it would be sometimes 15 to 25 seconds of waiting for your character to respawn, like exactly in the spot where they had fallen off the edge, which is why I'd say I really liked the game but didn't love it. But now I'm wondering if that PS5 version would kind of fix some of those issues I had, technically speaking. And also, I think there were some issues with like the cape kept like it was like stuck through my arm at one point. It was very distracting. So just like small things like that could be touched up, and hopefully Fallen Order 2 is a great success. Like we haven't heard anything about the game yet. I don't want to spoil in case anybody's listening to this and they want to hop into Fallen Order. There's an event that happens in the last few hours of that game that was like probably a game moment of the year for me that year. And I'm really hoping that they can expand on, there's a cameo at the end. That's all I'll say. And I hope that they're able to expand on that cameo's purpose in Fallen Order. And hopefully we'll see more of that person as well. Talking about Star Wars games as well, did either of you guys watch Star Wars Visions?
Yeah, I've seen Star Wars Visions. I definitely have both some critical points on it and parts I liked. I definitely think it's worth a watch. Like, yeah, the big thing that hindered my enjoyment of it is like it. I did like giving it the studio's creative freedom. Like, here's Star Wars, do what you want with it. But at times, it was as if they weren't even familiar with regular Star Wars canon. There was one episode where I watched an X-wing fly out of a Star Destroyer, and I just like you can't watch that and not think like what's going on here.
There are like several moments of like characters breathing in space, which like minus Princess Leia in what the 8th Star Wars movie, I can't remember what it's called right now. Like that's not a thing that happens. Like Anakin's not just like out there without a mask breathing in space all the time. But I bring up Star Wars Visions because we talk about what we could see from Star Wars games in the future, and I feel like Star Wars has such a breadth of variety to it that you could really there's an episode of Visions that has like kind of like an anime bunny character. Give me the 60 hour JRPG game of that in the Star Wars universe. I'm set. Give me Mandalorian, but it's Red Dead Redemption 2.
Or like Monster Hunter.
Like Monster Hunter. Oh my god.
Like bounty hunting games. Just make it a bounty hunter thing, but you are a Mandalorian.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like over 2 minutes, we've discussed like 7 incredible Star Wars game ideas. But instead we're getting, we're not getting anything new. We're getting a lot of like the Jedi Academy remakes and stuff these days. But I really hope post Fallen Order, Star Wars and Disney takes a bigger gamble on the game aspect of it all and starts putting out more unique titles and stuff that we haven't seen or played before, to say.
So I didn't know that Visions was out yet. And it may not be out internationally. Let me just say that. But I saw a trailer for it the other day. A friend of mine recommended that I go watch it. And all throughout the trailer, I was just sitting there like, yes, I need this badly, yes. Because I love seeing studios just do weird stuff with their properties. I love seeing that it's changing animation styles every episode, like Love, Death, and Robots.
Yeah.
I love seeing weird over the top anime shit in these series. It's so good.
Yeah.
And I'm coming from the exact opposite. I don't mind if it doesn't obey the canon rules. I want to see some weird spectacle stuff. If there's good stories in there, it's gonna be a good time.
Yeah, I think Star Wars is like inherently weird. Like ever since it came out, Star Wars is a weird franchise, and I feel like through the Skywalker saga 7, 8, 9, they took themselves a bit too seriously and lost a lot of their charm through it as well. So
I
I'm
mean,
just hoping they
it's a universe that literally has a brand of music called Jizz.
right play with that. Give me Rock Band
Yeah.
5. Don't play with that. That came out wrong. But Callum has a point. This is a weird freaking universe. Just have fun with it. And that's like at the end of the day, I want to have fun in Star Wars. I don't want to be like over considering the melodrama and, you know, the hierarchy and stuff like that. Just give me weird bands playing jizz in the cantina, and I'm a good happy guy. So
Yeah.
any other thoughts on? I know we are talking about Fallen Order. It kind of opened up into a bigger conversation about Star Wars. But any like final thoughts on the game, Noah, before we kind of hop into news?
Yeah. So I guess one thing for the sequel is just touch it up a little bit. You know, really refine what it can be. You know, those animations and all that.
Yeah. Because Fallen Order is I'm brain farting right now. What's the development team behind that in Titanfall? Respawn?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I would be very happy if Respawn just put like a Titanfall mech in Fallen Order 2. Just like give me a hybrid of those two franchises. Because as far as I know, we're not getting Titanfall 3 anytime soon. Just make Fallen Order 2 Titanfall 3. I'd be very happy with that.
Yeah, and go full Gundam with it. Make it like it has a giant lightsaber. It fights in space. You can do kicks. Just make it weird and cool and
Okay.
mech-like.
There's like 8 Star Wars games that we just pitched. I'm gonna email this podcast to EA after this and see if they respond to any of our our pitches. But I guess they're losing the license to Star Wars pretty soon, so they might not be the ones to go to with that. But that's a wrap on the games we are playing. Everything from WarioWare, Get It Together, Dark Souls Remastered, and Star Wars Fallen Order. We're going to hop into the news now, and it was not a very heavy news week as the end of the year gets closer and closer. Most companies are sitting on announcements waiting for either A, the Game Awards, which is less than a month away, or they're waiting for some kind of Christmas, New Year's Eve announcements. So kind of a dry spell right now. But I think it'd be a disservice for us to not talk about the, I'm going to quote the word popularity of NFTs and cryptocurrency. I was talking to Callum a little bit before the show started. We are not experts. I will preface our conversation with that, but Callum does seem to know a little bit more than I do about NFTs in general, because I know a lot of us see it in the news and don't really know exactly what we're reading about. Like I know David Lynch just released an NFT, and that to me is really weird. Why would he do that? It's David Lynch. But Callum, are you able to kind of just give us like in layman's terms what NFTs are and just in general, not how they affect games specifically, but just in general?
All right, so an NFT is, from my understanding, and remember, I'm not a business guy, I don't know that much about it. It is essentially a piece of data, like a small unit of data that you get given as a proof of ownership of something. So if you sell a JPEG or like an image or something like that, you give someone a small piece of data that's their certificate of ownership that says they own this image. And basically, it means like wherever that image is, you technically own it. It's kind of. Do you guys remember in the 90s when they were selling people stars?
Like the Hollywood stars?
No, like when they were selling people a little certificate that says you own the star. Here's where
Yeah,
it is in the sky. It's
I think they still
basically
do
like
that.
that. Yeah,
Oh,
it's something. It is a proof of ownership of something you could never possibly own ever, and now they want to put it in games. So, like, I mean,
like an
no.
example I can think of, I think they sold the Charlie Bit My Finger video as an NFT. Like I think
Oh
one
god.
person now owns that video for some reason. It's not on YouTube anymore. Like one person owns it. It's in their vault. They have it on loop at home on their like portrait digital photo frame. If you name it, they're NFTing it. I think even Tarantino Quentin Tarantino is releasing cut scenes from Pulp Fiction as NFTs. Like, it is baffling to me. And this is, of course, the movie industry, but it's going to start seeping into games, which is very interesting.
You know that scene in like all those movies with like the rich jerk who's showing their impressive collection of like famous cars or first edition books or whatever? Imagine it was just like a computer and they were scrolling through images and it's like, I bought this NFT in 1937. And no, it wouldn't work. Stop doing this.
It's like
You
going to your
can't
friend's
own
house.
this.
They open their like desktop. They're like, look at this folder. Look at this folder of NFTs, man. I spent 10K on this Chester Cheeto riding a skateboard.
They just leave the room and you screenshot it. Because that's the thing,
Seriously.
it's 1 unit of data, and they enter it into a blockchain ledger, which you might, if anyone out there has dealt with cryptocurrency, the word blockchain is going to make a lot of sense to you. And here's the worst part, it's an unregulated market.
Yep.
There are no rules in this West. So there's literally, it can't be taxed. There's no possible way we can tax this. And now they want to bring this into the gaming industry, which is famously good at scamming people out of their money.
Incredibly so. I was talking a couple weeks ago about how I spent almost $200 on Overwatch loot boxes because I was really into that game at the time and I wanted all the skins, only to realize that was an impossible goal. Like, no matter how much money I give these guys, I'm never going to have everything I want in this game. But that was like 5 years ago. We're talking about loot boxes, and now here we are today, and NFTs are like kind of the big new scary thing.
And the thing is, like, loot boxes can be regulated because they are gambling. No matter how many times EA tells you it's not gambling, it is gambling. But there are laws and regulations for those kinds of things, and they have to be taxed on that money. So at least, unless they're doing something really skeevy, at least that money's going into the government somehow, and it's going to help with something.
That's
but
true.
NFTs, that's no longer the case. They could make they could sell the entire game to you as an NFT, and they would never have to pay that money forward.
And the reason that we're talking about it is that there was an article on Cog Connected about NFTs and how certain CEOs of companies like Ubisoft and Epic are, quoting and saying that NFTs are going to be the future of gaming. I have a hard time even like envisioning what that means. Like, when the new Mario game comes out, is there going to be a level that's NFT only that you have to pay $5,000 for, and you're the only person in the world who can play this level? Like, any speculation on what NFTs and games could mean for the industry?
Well, I'd like to hear from Noah as well, but I was thinking kind of like Skylanders or like Amiibos, where maybe you buy the NFT and you get the piece of code and you enter it in, and then you get access to the level or character. But they could also do a thing where maybe your account is an NFT, so you get the token for your account, and therefore no one can hack it out of it. That was a terrible maneuver. I'm sorry. My camera is awful. Yeah, so maybe it could be something like that.
Yeah. Noah, do you have a grasp on all this? Any opinions?
Well, I want to make sure I understand first. So is an NFT like you're purchasing like the rights to use something?
As far as I can see, it's just ownership. It doesn't even mean. I suppose you could use it if you wanted to, but what people seem to be doing now is buying the rights to something, selling those rights to something to someone who doesn't know about NFTs that well, and then that person sells it again, and seems to be basically a pyramid scheme.
Huh. Well, that is a big thing to think about. Yeah. I'm not really sure I can add anything right now, but
I wonder if it, like, in broader terms, because my first example was like a Mario level, which I think out of all the companies, Nintendo is probably the last company to get on board this train, though I imagine if they do, they will be the one selling the highest priced NFTs or something. They'll never go on sale, all that stuff. But in a more broad concept, maybe like Fortnite is a good example of, say they release a NFT for Fortnite that gives you access to a SpongeBob skin. And you're the only person, and it's like a bidding war, right? Epic is putting this skin on the market, this NFT, and like Callum was saying, you can use it or you can not use it. It can stay. You don't even have to wear the thing, but you could spend $5,000 to $10,000 in real life on this exclusive skin that nobody else has, and that all it is bragging rights. The only thing you really get out of it is that you can tell your friends, I have this and you don't, and you never will.
I think there are two very scary things to consider here. Is that one, the implication of this is an implication that the games industry has been giving us for a long time, is that they don't want us to own anything. That's been the transition from physical to digital, so we don't buy discs anymore, we just download games, from not actually owning the game but having a subscription to it, to things like Game Pass and things like that. It's about, you can't own anything, you can rent it. And the other implication here is that because it's so unregulated and so unchecked and so new, there is so much potential for just scummy behavior from companies that have proven over this last year and many other years that they are not above scummy behavior. They are containing some of the worst people out there. And honestly, like, Ubisoft has a lot more to worry about at the moment than whether or not its NFTs are going to do well. I mean, aren't they going to court soon?
I think I would be surprised based off what's been happening with companies like Riot and Blizzard. Like Ubisoft, I know Eve's had some issue last year where I think a bunch of employees were complaining to HR about kind of the male dominant work culture there. I don't know about a court date coming up soon, but I do know Ubisoft, like many other gaming companies, need to kind of look within and start repairing relationships with their employees.
No, they employ predators.
Yeah.
It has been stated previously that there are, I don't know if sexual offender is the right word, but definitely some predatory CEOs in Ubisoft. It is not a good culture. The crunch crisis and things. It feels like the gaming industry should not be looking for the next big way to make money, and should instead be looking for, how are we going to keep making people want to work in this industry?
And I've been on the podcast saying this a couple times, where like unionization should be a number one priority for the gaming industry right now. I think finding a way to protect, even like 3 weeks ago when it came out that Metroid Dread had cut people from its credits because they have a rule that you need to work on at least 25% of the game to make it to the end credits. That shouldn't be a thing. If you work on a game, you deserve credits. You guys are on this podcast. I'm going to give you credit, like, so there's something that needs to be done, hopefully in the next 3 or 4 years. I mean, they had a union in the film industry, and it took a long time to get there, but they finally had it done. So actors, not including the whole Alec Baldwin situation right now, but so people can stay safe and get paid for the work they do. And video game culture, you still have independent contractors coming in and coding a game for like a days of work, and it can take like up to 16 hours to do something like that. I totally agree. NFTs are not the thing they should be focusing on. Even Ubisoft, like, where's my Beyond Good and Evil 2 update? Like, is that going to be an NFT now? I hope not, because that game looks pretty good. But I think it's scary. I think it's scary to imagine what the world could look like with NFTs. And what you were saying, Callum, too, about how us as consumers don't really own anything anymore. I was going to include it in the news this week, but a game called Jump Force, which came out 3 years ago. It's a game that has Goku from Dragon Ball. It has Naruto. It has the One Piece. It's a fighting game with a bunch of anime characters. They're pulling that game off shelves, turning off servers, and it just came out 3 years ago. There are people who bought that game, and not many of them, but many people probably still play it online with friends. After only 3 years with it, they will no longer be able to do anything with the disc version of this game. So I think game preservation, employee rights should be more prioritized than the NFT of it all. This feels like more like a fad or a craze than anything else. And like most fads and crazes, companies can invest now only to find out that they've lost money 10 years in the future.
I mean, yeah, it's a Bitcoin Tesla situation, isn't it? Where they might invest like billions into NFTs and then find out, hey, we can't do anything with this. Let's stop.
Well, even think about like 10 years ago when 3D TVs were becoming popular and everybody was like, oh, got a 3D TV for your living room. And now nobody wants that. Nobody has that. And they were creating, there were some games that had the 3D feature enabled, and extra work had to be put into those games so that they'd run on a 3D TV. So I just don't think NFTs is a good long-term investment. Right now, short term, I can see the appeal, but I just don't think it's a way that I hope we're not talking about NFTs 10 years from now, especially when it comes to gaming, personally. So that's kind of just like a quick all of our takes on NFTs and how they could affect the industry and how not excited we are for that. Not really a news item, more of an anniversary. Sony's PS3 turned 15 this week. 15 years old for that little Sony PS3. Noah, did you have a PS3 or is that one that you skipped?
I'm not a PlayStation guy. Yeah, my memory of the PS3 was when I was new to Xbox and like a first person shooter style of game. Like I was always a Nintendo fan, but I moved into like first person shooters. So my memory of the PS3 is when I had my Xbox 360. People at school would tell me, "Oh, you have to pay to play," yeah, and all that jazz. And I don't know. I'd say, "Well, I'm taller than you. My voice is deeper than yours." I don't know. I don't really remember what I'd say.
I can't argue against you. I mean, you're right.
That's maybe the best comeback I've ever heard for a PlayStation Xbox thing. Shut up, virgin.
I'm taller, my voice is deeper. I win. Callum, what
that
about
was
you?
beautiful.
Do you have were you a Sony PS3 guy or were you also Microsoft side?
Mine was a Sony household for a long time. We were PS1, PS2, and then when the 7th generation of gaming consoles came out, I got a Wii as a present.
Mhm.
And then I saved up a ton of money to get an Xbox 360 because I played that at my brother-in-law's house. It was so much fun, and I loved it. And then towards the end of the generation, the prices started going down a lot, so I saved up a lot for a PS3, and I managed to buy it. And I loved my time with it because it had games like Infamous and Dark Souls and things like that. And there was some of my favorite games were on there. But no, I was a more of an Xbox computer guy.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I wasn't sure. This is my first day talking to you guys, so I'm like, I'm sure somebody had a PS3 besides me. I want to shout out the PS3 because it was my first non-Nintendo console. I think like Noah, I grew up mostly with Nintendo, from the SNES pretty much all the way up to the Wii U. And then I was working at a secondhand game store, and we had a PS3, 500 gigabytes with Last of Us for fairly cheap. And I thought, you know what? I think this is the time. I think now I hop in. So this was like 2012. So I came to the PS3 pretty late. I think PS4 was already out at that point. So by the time I got one, I had this huge library of games from Last of Us, Life is Strange, Uncharted's. Like I had a huge amount of games to catch up on. And I think the PS3 being my first non-Nintendo console really opened the doors to me wanting to play PC games, to me wanting to play not Mario all the time or Pokemon.
You jumped in at the right time because the biggest problem with the PS3 at launch was it had almost no games. And the
Mhm.
Xbox almost beat it in the ever-present console wars, which, by the way, Noah and I are mortal enemies again because I have a PS4. But yeah, Xbox almost won just because they got to play the original Xbox games,
Mhm.
because the PS3 had no backwards compatibility. Which, I mean, you see how bad that is, right? And now modern
Yeah.
consoles don't have that. Like, did we not learn that lesson?
Backwards compatibility is like the number one feature I always look for in a console. So unfortunately, when I got my PS3 and I found out it didn't play PS2 or PS1 games, actually, I think it might play PS2. There are certain models of PS3s that will do backwards compatibility, at least NTSC anyway. I have a super slim. I don't think it plays PS2 or PS1 though. I had to download games like Mega Man Legends off the PS Store on it. Um, but it was a great device to have. Is like my first Blu-ray player as well. I could put some MP3s on there and listen to music when I was playing games. So, and I grew up in a town where everybody had Xbox, but I was never a huge FPS guy. Like Noah was saying, he was getting into Gears and Halo and first-person shooters. I've always been more of a narrative kind of guy. So games like Uncharted, Last of Us, something with those story beats is kind of what compelled me to go that way. And now I have Game Pass on PC, so a lot of the Microsoft stuff I have access to. I just have not owned an Xbox just yet. So just wanted to wish a nice 15th birthday to PS3. Great little console, but no one's playing you right now, so that's cool. The last piece of news that we have is a weird one. And I haven't asked you guys, do either of you own a Switch or no Switches for you guys?
I own the Switch. I'm very happy with it. Looking forward to the Pokemon games coming out. I've been writing about those a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
me too.
yeah, I've enjoyed what I played on there. Like DQ11 was great on there.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's I do wish that the Nintendo would embrace like being able to play games like it's probably not going to have Starfield. It's not going to have the modern Bethesda games.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me it'd be great to only have to buy one console, but you know what?
Yeah.
I've always had the Nintendo and the Microsoft, so I'm to continue playing Nintendo so long as it's good.
What about you, Callum? Do you have a Switch or no Switch for you?
I would sell my neighbor's kidneys for a Switch, but no, I haven't gotten access to them yet, so no Switch for this boy. I do have
Okay.
a 3DS.
I love my
So
3DS.
yep, I can't find its charger right now, so I'm in a very precarious, like Schrodinger's cat situation where this could
Yeah.
be the last time I turn it on.
Oh no. Like you have battery life on it now, but if it dies, you won't be able to recharge it. Oh my goodness. So it's kind of interesting. The Switch turns I think 5 in March, so we're about 4 months away from its 5th birthday. And this week, without any announcement or anything, they kind of just shadow dropped it. You can now download the Twitch app for your Switch, which is very interesting because the Switch has been like notoriously empty in terms of third-party apps since launch. It doesn't have Netflix. It doesn't have Spotify. It doesn't have Amazon Prime Video. Like it has YouTube and now it has Twitch, and that's it. Kind of a weird thing to add, quote unquote, halfway through a console's lifespan. Noah, do you think that there's a chance that this could open the doors to something like Netflix or Spotify coming, or is just kind of just like a random drop?
You know, I hope that it will. I I think Netflix and Spotify are more likely than lesser known third party kind of apps. And I have a question if you guys don't know, it's all good. So, but some from what I've read about this new Twitch app on the Switch, it sounds like it's all like viewing, but can you actually stream from it?
So I hopped in last night because I wanted to look at the UI and everything for the Twitch app. It looks like absolute trash. Like I don't think you can stream from your Switch directly. I don't think that's something you can do. I did not see that setting. The one thing that upset me the most about the Twitch app on Switch's UI was that nowhere on the main screen can you go to people you follow and watch their videos. My entire homepage was recommendations of random people playing random games that I've never heard of. Meanwhile, but then I signed into my phone app and there's 2 people I follow who are live, but I had no notification of that at all on my Twitch homepage on Switch. So honestly, and the videos were playing at like half the video quality that they should have been. It doesn't seem like a great first week for that app on there.
Yeah, it does feel like Nintendo has spent a long time kind of going, the internet, psh, psh, that's a fad. We'll just move past it one day. And
Yeah.
it does feel like a lot of old man stick waving whenever they have to put something on. Like their e-store is also abysmal.
Yeah, totally.
Trying to connect to the internet on any Nintendo product has always been the worst, hardest experience of your life, and it's never worth it.
No. No, and like I said, when I saw Twitch, the first thing I thought was like, "Oh my god, maybe they'll do Netflix. I can watch like TV shows from my Switch in bed." Because that to me is like the ideal purpose of it. I can watch Netflix on anything else in my house, but to play it on a console, like in the living room on like a tablet mode or in my bed or something, that's the main appeal. But it's going to be like 2029 before Nintendo's like, "Hey, have you kids heard of Netflix? Guess what? It's on your Switch, available now." It just feels like classic Nintendo being behind the curve once again on this stuff. And like you were
I
saying,
do
yeah,
have to say that I've owned an iPad 1, like the original iPad,
mm,
for about 10 years now.
yeah,
And the only thing I use it for is reading ebooks and watching Netflix in bed. And if Nintendo just could corner that market, then they would be making billions, well, more billions.
yeah. It should be noted that Nintendo had Netflix on the 3DS. There was a 3DS version of Netflix, but the Switch can't handle it for some reason. So it's very weird. And even like you were saying about their eShop, Callum, I think the Switch has the worst eShop since their entire history. At least the Wii and the Wii U had that fantastic music playing while you were shopping. It's just dead silence on the Switch main menu and the eShop when, the Wii eShop music, one of the most iconic songs of all time.
I mean, it like Nintendo's getting creepier every year, isn't it? Because Mii's just keep looking more and more human, but not human. So
More
it's
soulless
just
behind the
getting
eyes.
yeah, it's getting creepier every year. Nintendo's gonna kill all of us.
Yeah. And like while their software, like they're killing it game wise. Like I loved Metroid Dread. I'm looking forward to Breath of the Wild 2. Just make the console spiffier. Even back to 3DS, at least the 3DS had themes you could download, whether that was like a Legend of Zelda theme or a Splatoon theme. You boot up the console, you see an image in the background, and you hear music from the game. And it was like, okay, cool. I'm playing Nintendo. I'm in Nintendo World now. I'm going to hop into Pikmin or whatever at the moment. So Twitch on Switch, about 4 years too late, and not even that impressive based off my experience with it last night. Maybe they'll update it over time and it'll get better to use, but like I said, if you're going to be using Twitch on a platform, it's better to plug in your PlayStation or Xbox and just do it through there. So like I was saying, slow news week. That's about all we had to cover for that. We're going to hop into our talk about Skyrim. At the top of the show, I mentioned that the game has just turned 10 years old. I want to shout out Noah, who's been covering a lot of the news surrounding the 10th anniversary on KeenGamer. So please check out the website if you haven't for his stories on that. Let me start with you, Noah. What is your experience with Skyrim? Did you play it day one? Was it something you came to later?
Yeah. So among the first big like first person shooter type like rated M game I played was Halo Reach on my old 360, and at the time, like the using the internet with your games was all the craze. Like especially in that game, like meeting people, making friends who live across the ponds, and all that was definitely part of the experience. So let's see. I guess that that was like pre my maps really being like somewhat popular. I guess I had horseback gladiators up and running, and I was running some lobbies for that, and then it like you remember in the old. Are you guys not Xbox people? You might remember what this looked like on Xbox Live. It used to be you could go to your friends list and it would show you what game they're playing and like something about it. So it's in there. Eventually, I started seeing Skyrim, and it would say a level next to it, like level one, level 81. So I got curious and I would ask people like, "Hey, what is this game? Like, what do you do?" And it was hard to describe at the time because not a lot of people played open world RPGs. So they just said, "Oh, you've got to try it, got to try it," and I did. And I fell in love immediately. Like I would get annoyed when people would try to talk to me and I was playing it because I couldn't hear the other characters. I liked the NPCs more than the friends I made. It yeah, so yeah, I don't want to talk for too long. Yeah, Callum, you've got anything to add?
I have hot takes. Um, so here's the thing. Okay, so when I was really young, in 2011 stuff, when Skyrim just came out, my brother-in-law is still very big into gaming, and he introduced me to a lot of the games I love today. And I got to play Skyrim on his Xbox, and I had a blast with it. And I still think Skyrim's a very fun game. I still think it works up well. I mean, hell, I used to read Skyrim wiki entries in high school in class because I was so determined to never date anyone. But I the thing with Skyrim, you have no impact on that game at all. And Kyle, I'm gonna spoil some stuff, so you might want to cover your ears now.
It's totally fine. I'm good.
Okay, you might be able to predict this first spoiler. You have to kill the dragon, Elduin, and you kill him eventually. You go to heaven to kill him, which isn't a euphemism or anything. You visit Valhalla and you kill him, and it's called something else, but you kill him, and then there are still dragons. Dragons are still in the world. His whole deal was that he was waking up dragons, and there are still dragons, and there are dragons that are stronger than him. He was not the strongest dragon of the dragons, and isn't that wild? You do the Civil War, you siege Whiterun, you kill its leaders, and that changes its leaders. Literally, there's a couple of buildings that are on fire now, and things are broken, but you can still go there. Everyone treats it like it was just like another day, and there are still soldiers around the world from the opposite side that you have to fight. Like, there's no impact you make on the game. You can be the guild head of every guild in Skyrim, and the only thing you get is like a new bedroom because you can't change how they're run. And that's the worst thing about it. Skyrim is such a great game to start playing and lose like 5 hours of your life to, but it's so easy to quit playing as well when you realize the gameplay is not going to change, and neither is the world. Why am I here?
This is that's like a very interesting and I'd say hot take from Callum. Like, spoiler alert for everyone listening, I played my first 3 hours of Skyrim last night, the farthest I've ever gotten in the game. So I had that feeling that you're describing of hopping into it, being pretty much enamored and enchanted by the storytelling and the characters, and that opening sequence was very compelling as well. And I wanted to stay up till 3 a.m. playing it, but I was like, I should probably sleep before recording the podcast. But I always hear people talk about Skyrim as like, oh, you can do whatever you want. You got the freedom of choice. But you're saying it's not really like a Telltale game or even like a Witcher almost, where choices you make are like rippling effects throughout the game. Would you say that Skyrim is more of like a series of decisions that you'd say yes or no to? Because like you said something about taking over White Hill or Whiterun. Is that optional, or is that like linear campaign stuff?
No, the Whiterun siege is purely part of the Civil War quest line. It is a massive part. I don't know. I joined the Civil War on the Stormcloak side, which I'm sad that I did because I found out that the Stormcloaks were pretty racist. But anyway,
I
like
didn't know that.
you can join it on either side, and then essentially the mission is the other side has captured Whiterun. You have to siege it. We have to take it back, and then you install your leader, whoever they might be there. If you're an Imperial, it's still Belgrove. If you're someone else, it's someone else, and it's just pointless. It's
Okay.
just a big fight. That's literally all it is, and nothing changes from it. Like, the only noticeable change is that the leader I installed was there when you have to do a mission in Whiterun later. Like, he's just the new guy who gives you missions.
Interesting. Okay. Noah, when you were playing this, was it back on the 360? I imagine.
The first time, yes. There were many following times that I really like Special Edition because
Mm-hmm.
it's been a really long time since I've done a vanilla playthrough. I tend to use mods to make it so I don't have to worry about leveling and all that stuff again. And I'm hoping to actually go back to vanilla because I'm worried that I'm going to forget how to max all the skills. And
Yeah.
I guess I can't have that. I can't be myself and not know how to master Skyrim.
I wanted to ask Noah, what's your favorite mod?
Oh, that's hard.
Well, you can give me a top 3 or something.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you're active on Bethesda.net, but like before I was here, a while ago, like the first big like step I took into being a journalist was I would do stuff on there. Like I ended up reviewing mods, which started as just things I wanted to say to the developer, but it turned it into like man, I'm actually okay at this. It yeah, so
That's awesome.
yeah, so I did like it was always for like story mods, like things you might consider a DLC. And honestly, till this day, I'd have to say that the best is the Forgotten City, the first mod I ever really reviewed. And now they have their own game. That like they turned it into their own game. Like it's a brilliant, really written story, and it takes a few days to complete, but it was fantastic, and I'd play it again.
I plan on
That's
playing
maybe
Forgotten City this week. I hope. I have it on Game Pass now, so I want to play it before Game of the Year discussions start happening because I know it's going to be up there for a lot of people.
Oh, nice. That's maybe the best thing about Skyrim is that over the last, like, it shouldn't have been re-released for the last 10 years, but the best thing about it is that the modding community exists. It's such a great part about gaming.
And I didn't realize that the mods were available on console. When I booted up the game last night, I'm playing the PS5 version of the special edition. So when I saw new game settings and mods as my main menu options, I was like confused. I'm like, wait, this isn't my PC. Why am I able to mod this game? And then the mod menu is like you can sort everything by popularity. You can sort it by quest or item, or if it's a graphic enhancer or something like that. Like there's the first mod I saw was like a locked 60 FPS mode for Skyrim, which I was like, oh, I should probably install this. That would be nice.
Now, I may be wrong about this, but I don't know if those are mods or if they're part of the creator content, where it's basically like the paid mods that Bethesda used to do for Fallout, and they just made it like a small community that makes mods for them.
I'm
But
not I'm not very sure.
Yeah.
I went through the menu. I didn't select or download any because I was like, I'm just going to play the natural version of the game for my first impressions. But you might be right.
I'm not entirely sure either. I'm like, if you know, comment and tell us.
Yeah, let us know in the comments below. Going back to basics, do you guys have a class of character you prefer to play as? Because I went for the Lizard Man Argonian, I want to say. Yeah, so I was Argonian, and I really like just I found the nearest river I could, and I just hopped in there and breathed underwater for like 5 minutes. I'm like, this is a cool power. I can get used to this. What about you,
never
Noah?
useful.
It's never useful.
You never do anything underwater.
Oh, that's so good to know. Noah, what about you? What's your favorite class to play as?
For a while, I was a major Stormcloak. Sorry, Callum, I would not play for the Legion. I have now. I'm not as firm on it, but yeah, for a while I would only play as a Nord because it felt the most natural with the story. But yeah, my first playthrough, before I knew that there would be Stormcloaks and Imperials, I went for Argonian as well because like how can you look at that and not pick the lizard person? Like what person would do that?
It could go back to like my childhood memories of playing Mortal Kombat and really liking Reptile. Like that's where I think it is, because even when I play a game like Divinity of Sin, like I'm like, oh, I want to be the lizard person. Please, lizard person me. Callum, what about you? What's your go-to class?
I'm a boring white guy, so I pick the humans all the time. I do just want to point out that I'm not an Imperial. I don't join the Imperial Legion anymore. I just don't do the war. But I used to I used to play an Imperial a lot because they have this cool ability where you can find extra gold. Whenever you find gold. So I thought that was going to be useful, and it really was. But sometimes I'll play as like a Breton because I like making spellcaster classes. But I'll either go thief or like spellcaster.
The one I was tempted by, I was like, should I be the lizard or should I be the wood elf? Because I think it's the wood elf that lets you command animals to attack enemies for you, and that sounded really cool. Gameplay wise, I wasn't sure how it was going to work. I didn't want to get like too confused about hitting R2 and triangle at the same time, but
It's probably quite a bit like the Imperial power where it's like a shout. You use your special ability, and the Imperial one is that you calm everyone down for a minute, which is great if you get caught stealing, which is what I did frequently.
Very cool. Yeah, no, it took me the first hour of the game to figure out how to put my fists down. I was just walking around like this for the first 60 minutes, and then I accidentally hit square. I'm like, oh, okay, never mind. Fists away for now. Also, I wish that there was a arachnophobia warning at the top of the game, because I somehow did not expect to be fighting spiders. And then I don't know if it was a side quest or the main quest that took me into a temple, but I started going deeper and deeper, and I saw cobwebs, and I'm like, okay, well, this is alluding to something awful. And then, of course, the biggest spider I may have ever seen since like Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets pops down, and I died immediately. So the giant spiders, and I guess that's a moment where I realized too, like most games, I shouldn't be here right now. I realized this is not a fight I should be bashing my head against for the next 2 hours. I need to go out there, get better, and then come back to this, was my assumption. I also got killed by giants last night as well, in like one fell swoop. I was like, I see you. I'm going to take you down. And then he hit me on the head and I was dead.
Oh, it's like watching a baby crawl for the first time.
No, my partner who has played Skyrim before, probably 200 hours, was kind of just like hand over mouth, just like trying not to scoff at my mistakes.
You can
Uh,
absolutely kill that spider at level 1, by the way. It's very easy.
I was wondering if I needed like a fire spell or something because I'm
Nope.
as a lizard, I only have like my mace and my shield. Okay, it's very easy.
Hilariously, you can use spider poison on it.
Oh, I was avoiding picking up spider poison because I'm like, if I'm carrying it, it might like poison me. I don't know how the game logic works, so I was like, I'm not going to risk it. It's like Fallout.
The fact that it was in a bottle didn't put you off this idea.
Why did the spider have a bottle of its own poison? I was
Why
like, I
does
don't
it
know.
have a ruby on it? This is a game, my dude.
Oh, I was taking it way too seriously last night. Noah, do you have a favorite like in-game quest or even like a quest or a moment from your time playing it that has stood out to you over time?
Oh, Manny. Yeah, Manny. So one quest I do particularly enjoy every time I play it is the Forsworn Conspiracy. There's a lot of different ways to complete it. It's a very there isn't a lot of combat. There's a lot of open world RPG kind of things. You're going around talking to people, trying to figure stuff out, like create avenues to advance. That's always been a quest I enjoy.
Nice. What about you, Callum?
So I'm not entirely sure how this quest starts. I think I remember it. But basically in Skyrim there's these things called the Daedric Princes, which are these famous demon princes, and you can do a quest for each one of them to get their particular weapon. Now, I believe his name is Sanguine, who is like the Prince of Revelry or something. And at one point, he just approaches you looking like a human in a bar and gets you utterly, nutterly, butterly. Like you are so drunk and you get married. And you search the land of Skyrim for your wife, who turns out to be a hag raven. And then you kill her because she's a hag raven. And then you go to Sanguine's realm and he's just like, oh, that was fun. Sorry I screwed with you for a bit. Here's a knife.
Yeah, so Callum, that's my second favorite quest. Very glad you brought it up because I remembered that one time I played that I saved that quest for last, and I was already married to Isolda, who's involved in that quest. So I went and explained to her that I married someone else when I was in a drunken stupor. Yeah, and it made it so much more real, so much not more real. Yeah, so much
Yeah.
funnier.
I didn't even realize that there was marriage in this game. Like I didn't know that was a thing you could do. You just like any NPC, or is it like a finite amount that you can choose from?
There are certain ones, I think. I think there are specific NPCs, but
Oh,
there's
okay.
men, women, it's by gender, it doesn't matter who you want to marry, but it doesn't really do anything. It's kind of just like they open a shop out of your house and you earn some money from them and they cook you food.
Oh, that's nice. That's pretty good. Those both sound really cool, and I imagine those both sound very unique. The ones you described. I imagine there's got to be like a bunch more quests like that, kind of like weird one-off journeys or adventures that you kind of just like stumble upon, which is what I was having the most fun doing last night when I was playing this for the first time. Was the main quest said go here, I turned around and went the opposite direction. I'm like, I don't want to do the main stuff right now. I want to feel like I'm adventuring and I'm like finding new NPCs or towns or villages on my own. Which to me, like whenever I went over a hill or a mountain and I could see like the rooftops of another village, I was like, oh, cool. I didn't even know this was here. Um, I feel like the map was maybe not my favorite part of the game. And like I said, I've only played for 2 or 3 hours. Maybe when I unlock more areas, it'll open up a little bit more. I just found it confusing to find out, even on my mini map on my HUD. I was like, where's my objective? Like I didn't know if it was like pinned to the map or something. But I was highlighting quests and having a hard time finding out where to go to do the quests. I'm not sure if that's an issue you guys have had as well, or just me being dumb.
Sometimes you have to go into your quests menu and check like the miscellaneous because it might be under that, and you have to make sure it's selected. Otherwise, it won't bring up the marker. But even if you do, sometimes the marker just doesn't show up.
Yeah, and that's one thing as well. The menus were like, I think it's triangle to open up your items magic menu.
What is your key bindings, my man? I've played this on console. It was start.
It was start. Well, I think start
Yeah.
opened up. Start opened up the there's a one menu that's like settings, objectives, and a third tier. But if I hit triangle, it opened up like a D-pad ish menu that was like skills and upgrades, map,
Oh, that's
items.
different. No, you're not going to be able to find your quests there.
Oh,
That's for
okay.
inventory and magic and things.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like there's two different buttons that took me to two different menus. If I hit the touchpad, it brought up the how much time do you want to skip to go to the next day. But obviously,
Yeah.
like if I spend more time in the game, that's all going to become more intuitive for me to do. Um, Elder Scrolls 6 is quite a while away, but I'm sure you guys have some expectations or things that you're hoping to see from it when it finally does come out. Callum, I'll start with you. Anything that you're hoping to see from Elder Scrolls 6 when it finally drops?
Well, I think an interesting thing is we don't exactly know where Elder Scrolls 6 takes place. It's from the way it looks, it's either going to be Black Marsh or elsewhere. Black Marsh being the place where the Argonians come from, elsewhere being the place where the Khajiit come from. And I hope it's Black Marsh because Black Marsh sounds really interesting. There's a book in Skyrim called the Argonian Account that you can read in the game that tells you, like, for instance, to fast travel in Black Marsh, you have to get eaten by a giant worm, and then it takes you to where you need to go, and it like deposits you there. So I'd like to see like interesting stuff like that, like making things a bit more world related. I'd love to see more impact. Just make my actions have consequences. At the very least, let the gods say something different once I've done something. You know, there needs to be a reason that I'm doing this, and it should be that I'm making an impact.
I totally agree with you. And I think maybe a weird example, but I think Fallout 76 actually has quite a few missions and objectives that have that butterfly effect across the world, depending on what you do. I was playing Fallout 76 last year during the pandemic because I had nothing else to do and it was super cheap. But there are things and people that you talked to that will either aid you in the world or sometimes they might like end up damaging or harming the world or making it more dangerous in the area that you're exploring. So I agree. I always want a living, breathing world in a game. And while I'm getting that on the surface of Skyrim, it sounds like there's more depth to be found there.
Mm.
Noah, what about? Oh, go ahead, Callum.
I just want to make one last point is that I remember the game Fable. For all of its faults, I remember in the beginning of Fable 2, you can choose 3 good actions or 3 bad actions, and they determine what the main city looks like. And you see, that's a tangible change in the world.
Yep,
And that's the kind of thing you should go for.
absolutely. Noah, what are you looking forward to or hoping to see from Elder Scrolls 6 when it comes out?
Yeah, so I haven't covered ES6 actually since I was still running the Black Rose blogger before I was even recruited. So actually, there's several clues regarding the location that point to either Hammerfell or High Rock. Yeah, you can read my old post about it. I mean, you could be right, Callum. We could be way off, and maybe it is Black Mars or Elshear, but yeah, but several things point to that. And one thing I'd say I'm hoping to see would be, yeah, I'd like choices to be a bigger part of it, like less, less of a determined style of play, just based on like I find myself making similar decisions over and over again in Skyrim, just because like you have something you like. I definitely like there to be more roots, and I I'd love to see the modding community get involved. It's a very long way away, but yeah, they'll be able to do some exciting things with that. Actually, a similar thing to what I said about Fallen Order 2. I'd like there to be more variety in the combat. What yeah, who knows what they'll be able to do by the time this game comes out, but one easy way to do it is just more kill move animations.
Mhm.
Like more different ways it to fight that don't necessarily involve anything on the player's part, and maybe you have different weapons do different ones as opposed to in Skyrim where it's all kind of just meshed together. I guess if you dual wield, there's like the decapitation where when they're like on the ground. That's my favorite way to kill Mercer Frey. Actually, is when like when sitting on like the little book that the statue's holding. I like when that animation comes up.
Yeah, I didn't have a chance to mention it, but I didn't know about these like slow motion kill shots, but like the first time it happened, I was like, "Oh, this is cool. Oh, I want more of this." And it was like not even that I was seeing the same animation every time. It seemed like there was a pretty good variety of. At one point, I used a shield to do the last blow. At one point, I like knocked somebody down and then stabbed them through the chest. Like those are cool moments. Like when you finally take down an enemy that's been charging at you, yelling for 30 seconds or so. That's a cool moment. Quick question as well. I'm not sure if either of you guys played ESO at all, but like Black Marsh and stuff, have these places been represented at all in the online Elder Scrolls game or no? Is that just Tamriel in that one?
I played about 5 minutes of ESO, so I don't know.
Okay. No, I wasn't sure if the giant MMO was, doing like Final Fantasy 14 expansions where like, oh, now you're here, now you're in this legendary area. So from what you guys are saying, these places sound great, especially as somebody who was playing as the Argonian, and I was hearing subtext about the Black Marsh. Is that what it's called? Black Marsh? So like I do already want to find out more of this place that I've only heard of for about 3 hours or so. But I guess we'll have to wait for Starfield to come out first, and then eventually after Starfield, we'll probably be getting not ESO 6, Elder Scrolls 6, which would be interesting. Any like last minute like comments or just thoughts about Skyrim before we close out the show? Callum?
Um, well, I mean, this is a weird one, but go with me here. I'm on a different podcast on YouTube that I do sometimes, and we have a recurring segment in it, where we pray to Todd Howard to ask him why Elder Scrolls 6 hasn't come out yet.
Did he
So
answer?
no, he hasn't.
Oh.
He's ignored me. He has yet to send a sign to his most valuable follower, but we sit in hope.
Yeah. Now, what about you, Noah? Any last minute like comments or thoughts about the game that's just turned 10 years old?
Yeah, so I touched upon it a bit in the article that went out yesterday, but in, yeah, at the time where I was playing Skyrim, I was like a teenager, a kid. So I was trying to figure out just what kind of person I wanted to become. And games like Skyrim, that and I guess Halo to some extent really helped me figure that out. I looked at the character that I played as and said, "This is who I want to be. I want to be a person that will defeat impossible odds to fight for people that I care about and things that I believe in." And playing Skyrim really helped me believe that there is nothing I cannot do, and that's why I'm here right now on the KeenGamer podcast, because Bethesda inspired me in that way. So yeah, I want to thank Todd Howard, everyone at the team. You really made my life a lot better with a game that you had no idea would be would be what it is now.
That's cool, Noah. That's really great for you to say, and I think it's you cannot gloss over Skyrim's impact on first of all the industry of games. I think there's so many open world games today because of Skyrim's influence, and also the personal impact it had on a lot of people out there, especially 10 years ago when most games couldn't do what Skyrim did, of offering you this huge adventure in an open world where you can discover everything and make choices and like really have an avatar of yourself in the game that is almost reminiscent to me of like when I played Mass Effect. Like Shepard that I played was the Shepard I wanted to be, as much as I wanted to be a dumb idiot and be Paragon all the time, or not Paragon, Renegade. I couldn't help but be the good guy. So, like playing Mass Effect helped me kind of realize more about myself and about my own morals. So it's really cool that it had that impact on you. That's going to be a wrap for this week's episode of the Keen Gamer podcast. Going back to the beginning, we talked about games like WarioWare, Get It Together, Dark Souls Remastered, as well as Star Wars Fallen Order. The news this week was light, but we talked about NFTs, Twitch on Switch, as well as the PS3's 15th birthday. And that was a great conversation about Skyrim. I'm so glad you guys are both here. You guys are both very obviously passionate and care about this game quite a bit. So I really do appreciate it. For anybody out there listening, thank you for hanging out with us. If you haven't already, please go to keengamer.com. Check out our amazing articles that we have on there. Like I said, Noah has been recapping a lot of the Skyrim stuff from this week. Callum, what's been your latest piece of work?
My latest piece of work has been an article on how to get a bit more fun out of Crusader Kings 3 if you're new to the game.
Very cool. Another game that I've always eye up. I'm just like, do I have the time for it? But
If
very-
you love Game of Thrones, if you love political intrigue, it's a game
Oh.
for you. It's also very nice to turn the sound off and just listen to a podcast so you can keep your hands busy.
And that's on is that on Game Pass? Crusader Kings 3? I think it is.
I'm not sure, but I don't think it's that expensive on Steam at the moment.
Okay, perfect. Noah, do you have any last minute plugs before we end the show?
No, nothing. Thanks a lot for having me. Really enjoyed talking to you guys.
No, it was great talking to you guys as well. If you haven't already out there, please check out thekeengamer.com. We have great reviews, opinion pieces, articles, nothing but great stuff over there. We will be back next week for another episode. Thank you again, and have a great day, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.